What is going on in the loop, fans? It is Drew here, and we're talking theme park keychains today. I have this carabiner here with an absolute plethora of keychains on it, so I figured I'm going to go over each one, show it off, and talk about a 10 to 15 to maybe 45-second story about each park. All right, so first one up here is the first keychain I have gotten from my collection, and that is this Cedar Point train. Cedar Point actually gave this away to a bunch of employees back in 2009 because the candy inside of it was expired, and I'm sure that candy inside it is now really expired. But that's the first keychain on here, was the Cedar Point train. And then it took me to the next year when I got this Carowinds keychain here back in 2010. It was opening day of Intimidator down in Carowinds, and that's what really started the keychain collection. Is now we had two of them. That trip also included a bunch of other different parks, like King's Dominion for Intimidator opening day. That's the I-305. But obviously this is going to be too difficult to go in order, so it's time to just show some off and talk about them. One of the big obnoxious ones is this keychain that also keeps your stuff dry, and that's from Wet n Wild. Got it on sale on its closing day, 2016. So last day of the operating season, got this bad boy, and so added that to the keychain collection. Another favorite of mine, while it doesn't actually say Hershey Park on it, obviously it came from Hershey's chocolate. I haven't been back to Hershey in a long time, ever since the dreaded sleet and snow day where we drove all the way through the night from Michigan to go to Hershey Park, and the park, we rode Comet, and then no other roller coaster operated for the rest of the day, so we just kind of walked around in the rain waiting for things to open. The operating teams were there. Rain lightened up and stopped raining, but they never opened up any of the other big coasters. So that was kind of a bummer, my last day at Hershey. I really wish it said Hershey Park rather than just Hershey's Milk Chocolate, but that's where it came from. It came from Hershey Park. This one's pretty cool, coming from Waldemere, and it's got Ravine Flyer on it, and the cars actually move to go along like the ride. So Waldemere and Ravine Flyer 2 on there. The Ravine Flyer 2 is great. Lots of good airtime. Been to Waldemere several times. It's actually probably the closest park to Cedar Point, minus Memphis Kiddie Park. So it's a good time to go if you are near that area. Now, Phantasialand in Germany has got one of the more unique keychains here. It is a sneaker with the park's logo all over it. Originally, I would just get the cheapest keychain, but then as life progressed, I started getting the ones that were the most unique because you'll see a lot of keychains look very similar, so it's neat to have different ones. Speaking of a really expensive one, this is the Disneyland 50th anniversary keychain with a fake diamond in there. It's sterling silver. This is actually like a $40 keychain, which is insane to me that I'm saying out loud that I spent that money on it. And it's just, getting tarnished in the collection with all the other ones. But it looked cool. It said Diamond Celebration here along the side. So really liked that. And it's got the Disneyland Resort logo on the back side of it. Because that would be the front side, because then the D would be correct. So it says nothing on the front, it just says it on the back side. But either way, I really liked the Disneyland one, and I wanted to get that. Disneyland is great. Fun Spot America, home of two parks. You've got down here in Florida and the third park up in Georgia, but they all sort of share the same logo. I never had this keychain for the longest time because it was one of my local parks. I go ride Mind Blower and White Lightning all the time. But one day I noticed the keychain was gone, and I was like, oh crap, I never got it. It's hard for me to motivate myself to get the local park's keychain. And so I asked them about it, and they gave it to me for free. So that one's free into the collection. Going into the strange here, we've got this guy right here. This is from, if I open it up and you can see the Alton Towers logo. It was the only keychain at Alton Towers that was a park-specific one and not a ride-specific one, so I added it, and obviously it looks totally different than any of the other keychains in the collection. But that's my Alton Towers one. Kings Island's up next here, and this guy, obviously you know a lot about Kings Island. The Eiffel Tower lights up. This was back in the really cheap keychain era. This was like 99 cents. I found it in the park, and that's why that one was welcomed to the team back in the day. I also liked it that I got 2 Eiffel Tower ones with Kings Island and Kings Dominion very early on into the keychain adventure. Kings Island, known for all of its great rides like the Beast, Mystic Timbers. Went up for closing weekend of Vortex the other couple weeks ago, but other than that, it's all good. Oh, this is a new guy. I forgot all about him. I added him to my keychain collection and have never really thought about it since then. This is from, can you read that? Conneaut Lake Park. So they've got a little beaver keychain here. That guy's awesome. Conneaut Lake Park. We went up there during free RT weekend. Myself, Beard, Hyde, Legend, Molly. No Ranger. Ranger had already gone home at that point, but that was a good time. Good trip. I like that park. I can't wait to see good things coming from them. Now, onto a park that just recently closed. We've got Indiana Beach. Pretty simple plastic keychain with the IB Crow on there. He's a good guy. Like him, like Indiana Beach, Cornball Express, one of the best roller coasters there. Had a lot of good fun times at Indiana Beach. In fact, one time I won a set of knives playing Fascination. So I won a set of knives and carried them around the whole day in the park, and nobody said a word to me. Now going on to big keychains here, we've got Camden Park. They obviously have this iconic sign right outside of their park, and so I wanted a keychain with that iconic sign on it. And then the Big Dipper is also on there right there. Huntington, West Virginia, great small little park. It reminds me of like mini Kennywood with a small wooden roller coaster and a bigger wooden roller coaster. But you can see they run the NAD trains just like Thunderbolt at Kennywood. Overall, good times at Camden Park. Plus, their whip is out of control, and they've got a pretzel dark right there. So I would recommend checking them out. Dutch Wonderland, this little, like, got their mascot on it. And that's actually the main entrance to the park. You kind of walk in through that castle. That castle's a gift shop, so that's pretty cool. And he's made out of foam, different layers of foam there. It's a good guy to add to the mix. Speaking of Eiffel Towers, we've got the Disneyland Paris one. Another Eiffel Tower here, so that makes 3 Eiffel Tower ones. Disneyland Paris did not have one for their other park, so I only have a Disneyland Paris keychain. Versus, as you'll find out here soon, that the Disneyland in California Adventure had its own keychain as well. Fun one here, Lightwater Valley. This is kind of like an interesting thing. It's like that Nalgene water bottle, but it's smaller size. It says Lightwater Valley on it. It's also a crayon pencil sharpener if you were to open it up. Is it a crayon pencil sharpener? No, it's a regular pencil sharpener if you were to open that up. But there's the Lightwater Valley keychain. Lightwater Valley, home of Ultimate. I really like Ultimate. It's a great ride that goes through the woods and all that kind of stuff. Knott's Berry Farm. Oh, Knott's is a great place, especially if you go during Boysenberry Festival. You boysenberry everything, lots of great food, boysenberry beer, boysenberry punch, the fun bun. So many good things to do at Knott's Berry Farm. Moving on here, we've got Lagoon. They've got this horse statue up at the front of the park, and they have a keychain of the horse statue. It's actually got some weight to it. It's pretty heavy. And it's got a nice solid ring to it too. So it's not like your normal keychain ring that's kind of crappy. That's a really heavy ring and all that kind of stuff. But Lagoon, you want to go check out Wicked and Cannibal if you're heading out there. Yeah, it's good times. Elitch Gardens you can only live once. You might as well go do it at Elitch Gardens. Who knows how long this park is going to remain, but I like that it's got the park skyline, and then you have the football stadium, the Denver Broncos, behind it. Elitch Gardens is on borrowed time here, so I would check it out as soon as you can. Really, the only thing worth going there for is the Meow Wolf ride, which I actually opened after I went to it. But it's really neat riding all the rides and being so close to downtown Denver, because they've got some tall rides like a Star Flyer and a Ferris wheel, and you got pretty good views of the city. So I would check it out if you were down there. Also, parks that are in kind of remote areas. We've got Valley Fair up in Minnesota. The fair of Cedar Fair finally got up there a couple of years ago. Man, what a cold day. It was like 40 degrees. It was raining, but everything was running besides the Wild Mouse, and I had a blast. It's great. Renegade is fantastic. Excalibur's fantastic. Wild Thing, also a great ride. So I would check out Valley Fair if you can. Now, here's some of the smaller attractions. We've got Gatorland here in Florida. It's been in existence since 1949. Lots of cool gators, lots of cool shows there. So I would check that out if you have kind of a half day or something you want to do before you go to the airport or something like that. I recommend checking out Gatorland. Dorney Park, kind of Cedar Point Jr. It's a very simple looking keychain, pretty colorful. Dorney Park is a pretty simple place. Now, what's great is very similar keychain to that is Six Flags Magic Mountains, which actually took me a couple of trips to get a Six Flags Magic Mountain one, because they don't always have merchandise for the park specific. Normally, most of their merchandise is either ride specific or it just says Six Flags. So that was kind of a challenge. In fact, it was also a challenge at a couple of different Six Flags parks. Like Six Flags America, actually. Someone else had to get me this keychain because they didn't have any the first time I was at Six Flags America. And what's great is it looks exactly like my Six Flags New England keychain. Very similar stuff, only just this one says New England and this one says Six Flags America. I really like this guy from Idlewild and Soak Zone. It's like the old school poster of the park. You've got the Ferris wheel, the roller coaster. So some really cool details going in that guy for Idlewild. And Idlewild's pretty sweet. You've got a crazy wild mouse that wasn't open when we were there, and then the lots of good weird stuff at that park. Adventureland, Iowa. You got to go ride Monster, and this keychain's really big. It's the second biggest keychain besides the Wet and Wild one. It takes up a lot of space, and it's really big, but you know, Monster's a great ride, and I recommend checking it out if you get to be in the area. Now, Walt Disney World, the keychain is represented by all four parks. They actually sell individual park keychains. I've just never bothered to swap this one out for that because it's my home area, and so it's a lot harder for me to convince myself to buy a keychain for my home park rather than ones that I'm just sort of on a tour for. But I really like this guy because it's got the keychain ring is actually in the shape of Mickey's head, which is different than all of the other ones. Speaking of different ones, Busch Gardens Williamsburg, welcome to a tape measure. I think this is a terrible idea because if parents are ever like, oh, your kid's not tall enough, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, you sold this in a gift shop, and let me show you how tall they actually are. But pretty useful. So I saw one that had Busch Gardens. It was a keychain, and it was a tape measure, so I picked up that one. A couple other useful ones. We've got a bottle opener from Alabama Splash Adventure when I went up there to go ride Rampage. Rampage is an awesome roller coaster, so if you happen to be ever in the area, you should probably go and check that out. Also, Aquatica Orlando. This one is also a bottle opener, but it looks like a shark took a bite out of it, so that's sweet. When I went to go buy this one, actually, the park lost power pretty much right after I bought that keychain, and my stuff got stuck into a locker for like 45 minutes while they figured out their power outage. So that wasn't cool, but at the same time, I understood if they don't have power, they can't open the lockers. How are you going to open up the locker if you don't have power for it when it's battery operated or whatever? It's not battery operated, but At last, I finally got my stuff out. Here's Thorpe Park's keychain. It's a keychain here, but it's also the different rides are magnetic. So you've got the Thorpe Park logo on it. You've got the Stealth logo, which is the Intamin accelerator coaster. We've got Colossus, which is the 10 inverting looping roller coaster. That's awesome. Saw the Ride is pretty badass also. And then the Swarm. So you've got some cool rides there along with the logo. I like that guy. What's up here? Holiday Park in Germany, home of Expedition GeForce. Obviously, the only reason you're going to this park is for Expedition GeForce. It does not take a full day to go there, but I mean, tell you, as soon as you get there, hop on Expedition GeForce. It is an Intamin. It does go down from time to time, but the ride is awesome, especially if you sit in the back row. Especially if you sit in the back row on the left-hand side, that is a nice gem there for them. Now, here is two identical keychains, both on my UK trip I took with the coaster crew. We've got Gulliver's Theme Parks. They actually have two by the time we went. I think they have a third one, whether it's open now or it's opening soon. But they had the exact same merchandise. So I only picked it up from one. And then the same exact keychain here from Pleasure Beach. So that's pretty cool. Do they light up? Gulliver's does. Pleasure Beach is at this point the battery. No, it does. No, does it light up? No, it still doesn't light up. But obviously those are great, cool guys there. Staying in the UK, we've got Drayton Manor Park, DMP, and Drayton Manor, home of the 7-Up Shockwave. If you remember from roller coasters, greatest roller coaster thrills in 3D. No, world's greatest because we're in the UK. So they've got that and pretty much nothing else. The original Vekoma Boomerang coaster are one of the first. But now that they've gotten rid of GeForce, I would say maybe pass on that one. Michigan's Adventure, Shivering Timbers obviously is the reason to get there. Shivering Timbers is great. I went up to Michigan's Adventure once, and what's just crazy is because I went like the first week of June, and that was like the beginning of their season. Like they still weren't open daily at that point, so just be wary if you go to Michigan's Adventure because they don't have a very full theme park schedule, so pay attention to that guy. Here's a great one from Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. It's a wooden cowboy boot, very patriotic. I like this guy because it's different. This is one of the first different ones I got. Big fan of that guy. Now going on and talking about keychains that are very similar, check this out from Holiday World in Dollywood. They are the same keychain, just a different t-shirt on the inside. This one obviously says I Butterfly Dollywood, and then this one is Holodog on his t-shirt. But these parks are great, and both best coasters are wooden there. You've got Voyage, Raven, and Legend here at Holiday World, and then Thunderhead and Lightning Rod over at Dollywood. Good stuff. Really like all of that kind of stuff there. See, and this is my Disneyland California Adventure one. It says it there. It's a World of Color keychain, but I don't specifically normally like to get attraction-themed ones. I like ones for the park just because they fit into the whole motif better. But on the back, it said Disney's California Adventure, so that's why that keychain made it into the collection. Now, here's something that's going to be a little confusing for you guys. Because trust me, it's confusing for me too. And this is the Seaworld problem, as they don't usually have specific park merchandise. So this keychain says Seaworld, this keychain just says Seaworld, and this one just says Seaworld. Well, I got this one in Texas, this one in Orlando, and then this one in California. So all three of them are there. They're all slightly different parks, but they've all got great rides, and I recommend checking them all out. I wish they had keychains that were more unique to the park. You couldn't go any other direction other than that way with Kennywood. You got to go with the Kennywood Arrow. So I got a nice Kennywood Arrow one from Kennywood. Love Kennywood. Obviously, we had our free RT thing there last year with all of the great roller coasters. We rode Phantom's Revenge into the night. So really like Kennywood. I can't wait to get back to Kennywood someday and ride Steel Curtain. All right, moving along here. The park at OWA. Oh, man, this park had great merch for a park that was brand new. They had a bunch of things for everyone, or it's the park at OWA. But you've got Rolling Thunder on it, some of their spinny rides, and I really liked that keychain, so picked that one up when I was at that park. This one's going to be really hard to read, but this is Lake Compounce. It's like a stretchy little rubber band type thing with a keychain on the end of it. Kind of an interesting design there. That was the only one I could find from Lake Compounce, but if you're going to Lake Compounce, you're checking out Boulder Dash. It's a really cool park. I really like my Universal Hollywood keychain. It's got the tram tour vehicle on it. The wheels kind of move around like that. The tram tour is awesome. Been to Universal Hollywood twice. Really had a good time both times. The tram tour is always a little different, so you always want to make sure you check that park out if you happen to be in Hollywood. Now, if you happen to be in the middle of nowhere in Colorado, definitely stop at Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park. Let me tell you, this swing ride right here, one of the most terrifying rides out there. They have the Haunted Mine drop now, where you're dropping straight down. Braden and I ended up over there a couple years ago, and I got to say, the folks at Glenwood Caverns are great people, and I hands down would go back again if I happened to be in the area. All right, so this one is a twofer here. We've got Six Flags Over Georgia in a flask, and it's actually a functioning flask. It works pretty well. It holds liquids in there. Not that I've ever snuck liquids into the park or all. I got this one in 2010 during my spring break. And man, I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever had a better day at Six Flags Over Georgia. Park was dead. Walk-on rides, everything, letting you re-ride. I think I rode Mindbender like 9 times that day. Batman the Ride like 6. Goliath 10. A couple rides on Superman. And then this was back when Ninja was Ninja, not Blue Hawk. They're like, do you want to ride again? I was like, nope, one was quite enough for me. So that was my first time at Six Flags Over Georgia. Had an absolute blast. And it's cool seeing how that park's grown since then. Now, Worlds of Fun, let me tell you the story about this keychain. So I totally forgot to get a Worlds of Fun keychain when I went up there. It was just 100 and something degrees. We left the park pretty quickly. And then one of my friends happened to be going to the park later that year or another year. So I was like, hey, can you pick me up a Worlds of Fun keychain? And he said, sure. And I've never seen him since then. But a couple years later at the Cedar Point employee garage sale, they had a Worlds of Fun keychain. So I picked this guy up there. And so that is where I have the Worlds of Fun keychain from now. And I've never gotten the one that my friend specifically picked out for me. Speaking of people picking out keychains for me, I've got this Lake Winnie one right here. Lake Winnie did not have a keychain the first time I went there. And a gentleman, I think his name is David. David picked me up this keychain when he went to Lake Winnie, sent it to me, and I've been to Lake Winnie since then and actually didn't see keychains a second time. So pretty excited to got a Lake Winnie one. It's blue with some glittery font on it, but Lake Winnie's great. They've got an old school classic water ride, an old school classic coaster, an old classic dark ride, an old classic carousel, awesome antique cars, a sky ride that goes over the lake. Lots of good things about Lake Winnie that I would recommend you going to check out if you happen to be in the area. It's also right off of 75, which is convenient. So if for some reason you're taking the drive down from Cedar Point to Florida or something like that, you can plan it around Lake Winnie. Discovery Cove. Obviously, Discovery Cove is the small upcharge park, all-inclusive. That's in the Seaworld chain down here in Orlando. It's awesome. You get to swim with dolphins. You can take your beers to see the marmosets and the otters, so you can be floating around with that and a beer in your hand, and so that's great. Really like that. Going into fun keychain mode here with Six Flags Great Adventure. You got the little midway carousel going up and down. Very similar to the Waldameer one where the ride vehicles moves, only the Waldameer one's a little better, but this is a bigger keychain. Good guy. Really like Great Adventure. El Toro, Nitro. All of those are great attractions. I will say that Top Thrill Dragster is dramatically better than King Dakar, so you can fight me on that one if you disagree. You're just plain wrong. Cute little bear here from Canada's Wonderland from a logo I don't really recognize. It just sort of says Canada's Wonderland. It's not a particular logo I think that they've used. I really like this guy. He's kind of cute and adorable. So that's why I picked him up when I picked the Canada's Wonderland guy up. Now, Canada's Wonderland is great. I will say I was kind of an ignorant American the first and second time I went to Wonderland. I didn't have Canadian money the first time, so I exchanged money for Canadian dollars when I was up there the first time, and then I spent the whole day having to spend Canadian money because it was not going to be worthwhile when I went back to the United States. And then the second time I went, I didn't realize that my phone GPS wouldn't work, so we kind of got lost in the middle of Canada. So plan ahead next time. Or plan ahead, get some Canadian dollars, and get triptychs or something like that. Wild Adventure, small park. The only thing that's really known for is Zombieland was filmed there. It's actually really not that small of a park. It just doesn't really have anything of quality there. You've got a CCI running Gerstlauer trains. You've got an SLC and a Boomerang, and those are some of the bigger rides. And then that guy was the drop tower in Zombieland. I have been to Wild Adventures twice. It's also right off of 75, so if you're driving down that from Orlando, it's not too far out of the way if you wanted to stop there. Canopy Lake Park up in New Hampshire, not too far out of Boston. You've got an awesome classic wooden roller coaster, a Eurofighter that's not too janky. So all in all, I would check out Canopy Lake Park. They've also got a lot of cool classic rides, and they serve booze. So I recommend going to Canopy Lake Park if you are interested. All right, now here's one for M Squared. It's Del Grosso's Amusement Park, the park themed to pasta sauce. It smells really good there. The water park side, dramatically nicer. The restaurant side on the water park side, dramatically nicer. And then you get to the amusement park side. It's not as nice, but they've got 2 roller coasters for you and a whole bunch of pasta sauce and delicious pasta, so I recommend getting there. It's also really, really, really close to Lakemont, so if you're doing like a Pennsylvania road trip, you're in luck and you can do that. Six Flags Great America has this fun little like tube thing where the glitters and stuff move. And it's amazing is I would have thought the water would have sort of disapparated or evaporated while the keychain has been going on here for years. But no, it still moves and whatnot. Great America's great. I've been there once over 2 days in Chicago and had a blast. Six Flags Over Texas got a pretty generic looking keychain here with just Six Flags Over Texas and some polka dots. Kind of the opposite of the Fiesta Texas one, which was this crazy looking boot. This is just, it basically looks like a giant oversized luggage tag. This is my Universal Studios Florida one. It's got the ball. It doesn't actually say Florida on it. Oh, yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. It says Universal Studios China, actually, if you look at it, because it's Universal Studios, and then it was made in China. But that's that one. It's the ball. I liked it, so I picked that one out. But that's why the Hollywood one, I made sure said Hollywood on it, because they sold one of those. Sticking with Six Flags here now, we're going to Six Flags St. Louis. This is a fun one. It's got a lot of colorful words. It looks good. It's nice and round. Stands out, so I like that guy. Six Flags St. Louis, my favorite Six Flags park. I really like the Boss and how pretty the park is and American Thunder. So I recommend going to Six Flags St. Louis, and I can't wait for you guys to comment about how I'm so wrong about that in this video, if you even made it that far. Back to Islands of Adventure here in Universal. Islands, a more generic looking keychain, but it's got the logo there. Incredible Hulk is great. I would recommend checking that guy out. Flamingo Land, one of my favorite things here. We've got meerkats on the keychain. Flamingo Land is a cool park that's up in Yorkshire, England, in the United Kingdom. They've got several roller coasters. Honestly, none of them are very good, but they are building a Intamin 10 looper with lap bars for this season, so that should be a really cool ride once that gets up and operational. Going for a park that doesn't have a whole lot of rides to a park that has a whole bunch of great ones. We've got Europa Park, I got another one of these rubber band things that says I love Europa Park on it. And pretty great. I actually really struggled to find a keychain from Europa Park. They didn't have a whole bunch of them, but there was that guy. All right, we're down to a couple of ones left here. We've got Knoebels, and the Knoebels one is 3D. You can see like Cosmo is kind of sticking out there. I love Knoebels. Went there last year with Beardman, and we rode Flying Turns. That was my 600th roller coaster, so we'll always remember Knoebels for that. Twister, Phoenix, also great rides, and then Black Diamond, awesome. There's so many good things about Knoebels. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, something Knoebels doesn't have, and that is a mountain coaster. This one's from the Smoky Mountain Alpine Coaster in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. This was the first one I rode. It's not necessarily the first one out there, but first one I rode, and it's still probably one of my favorites. That and Goats on the Roof. Great mountain coasters. Mount Olympus, a park I don't know if I'll ever get back to. I don't know if I'll ever care to get back to. We've got the Trojan Horse and Hades in the background there. Simple plastic keychain. Good stuff. And now, what might be my favorite, just because it's so fitting of the park, so simple and so great. It's this piece of leather with the logo burned into it. It is Silver Dollar City. Silver Dollar City is great. Lots of good foods wandering around there. Definitely want to check out Outlaw Run. Apparently Time Traveler is great. That's opened after I went there. It's also not easy to get to from Orlando. You kind of got to take either Allegiant or you got to connect somewhere, and it's not a quick drive, so not the easiest place to get to from Orlando. But that is my keychain collection. That's not necessarily all of the parks I visited, but all the parks I visited that I've remembered to buy a keychain at. I try to buy it on every park every time if I can help it. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But let me know what's your favorite. Which ones do you think are pretty ugly looking? And we'll see you next time here on In the Loop when we are covering other fun things we've got going on. See you guys later.